Adventure log, Earth date, July 21st, 2025. Jarrell, good to see you. This is the next adventure log. I've just been adventuring around and hanging out with folks, and yeah, just been having a pretty good time. Now, the other night in a small mountain town called Pioneer on Highway 88 in California, there's a place called Gibson's. They do food there, and 2 nights a week they do live music. So the other night, I'm there with a buddy of mine. We're listening to the live music. There's a band called Double Take. I'm really enjoying the music, man. They're good. They're a good band. And afterwards, we mosey on down to the OK Corral. We're having a couple drinks and just hanging out. And some of the band members, I was chatting with them, and then I sort of brought up the topic of playing fiddle, and they said, "Oh yeah, you know what? Bring your fiddle to the next show, and we'll play a couple songs together." You know, and not the whole band wasn't there; it was just a couple of them. And so they showed me their schedule, and I took a picture of the next show that they'll be playing at, the dates, and yeah, it was in Plymouth, California. So I grabbed my fiddle, and I get there just so early, just hours and hours, and I figured, oh, I'll just trip through the little town. I'd never been through that area before, and I thought it'd be pretty neat to check out Plymouth. I was there so early, I stopped down by a little bar. Well, it's a Mexican restaurant that had a little saloon inside, and that was pretty interesting. Now, this was funny because the bartender is a gal who was already having a conversation with another gal that was sitting at the far end of the bar, and they were talking about, I think they had a bartender that was just, I think either she was no longer going to work there, she was fired, or whatever, or she said she didn't want to work there anymore, and she said that she was going to start working at the deli down the street. Now, this gal that's sitting at the far end of the bar, the other patron, I didn't catch her name, but she was saying about Jen. I don't think the names are going to matter in terms of confidentiality. It was a really small town, so the patron says Jen thinks that she's going to work at this sandwich shop. And she said, no one is going to order a sandwich from Jen with her nasty ass hands. And she said, Jen has the most disgusting, dirty fingers. It's all green under her fingernails. And she said, you know what? I will never order a cocktail from Jen because she squeezes, you know, a lime or whatever fruit into the drink with her nasty ass green fingers. And the bartender says, well, Jen doesn't know how to mix cocktails anyway. You know, they're just having a conversation, and the gal looks over to me. I'm just sort of sitting there, you know, with my cool, refreshing beverage. She says, oh, I'm so sorry, sir. I know that you're here just to have a quiet, you know, relaxing drink and whatnot. And she was apologizing. Oh, I'm so sorry. We're talking about this disgusting thing. You're trying to relax. And I turned to the gal and I said, no, it's okay. I appreciate it because I now know that I shouldn't order a sandwich from Jen at the deli. And she had a laugh, and, you know, we chatted a little bit, but I'm sitting here in this little saloon trying to just burn some time until the band shows up at the location. So we chat a little more. I'm about to leave. You know, I'm mostly quiet the whole time. And I turn around as I'm leaving, and I said, oh, and tell Jen to wash her hands. And they have a big laugh, and I leave. I go down the street, and the band is setting up, and I play fiddle just to warm up, just getting started. And it was a little bit awkward because the band was saying not all of the band's members were part of the discussion of me going on stage. So a number of them were a little bit unsure. They're saying, well, these songs don't really have spot for fiddle. We're not really sure. And they had actually never heard me play fiddle. They don't know if I'm a poser. They don't know if I can actually play on stage, if I can pay attention to what's going on with the other musicians. And so they're unsure about that. So there's two of them, they're saying, oh, come on, man, come on stage and play. And then there's two more that are saying, we're not really sure about that, you know. But they end up deciding in their sort of the second third of the act, okay, get on stage. We've got some slower songs. I'm sitting in the crowd. I'm just sort of chatting and hanging out with people. I'm enjoying the music anyway. But we get on stage. They play some slower songs. And I get the fiddle, and we have to grab one of the microphones from one of the guys was using it just to sing backup vocals. We put the mic in front of the fiddle. And then, so they're apprehensive. I can tell that they're pretty tense because now I'm on stage. They've introduced me, and the people in the crowd are excited for the fiddle. People love seeing a fiddle on stage. And so they're saying, oh, okay, we got a guest musician here. We got a guest performer. He's going to play fiddle. And so they put the microphone up, and I'm kind of thinking, well, I'm just going to play along with whatever they're doing, root notes and everything. Whatever the root note of the chord is fine. I'll do that. I'll just fill in back. And then in the middle of this song, everyone in the band turns to me, and I can tell that it's time for a break. A break's coming up. And they all look to me like that, and they're staring. I'm thinking, oh shit, well, I didn't know I was supposed to play a break. So then I go into it, and I'd never heard this song that we're playing before, but I fill in and I do that. They're kind of nodding along, and then they keep playing. They also play breaks. There's, they got two guitars there, one guy's on bass, and then it gets through the song, and they turn to me again, and everyone, the band hard looks at me, and I said, okay, this time I'm just going to make it a little bit more lively. I got a feel for the song, I'm doing it, and everyone's going, yeah, all right, okay, good. And that was so much fun. I didn't know if I was going to fit in with the band at all. They didn't know if I was going to fit in. But after that first one, they went, yeah, all right, okay. And it was really exciting to get that moment of, all right, we've got a connection as musicians. We got it now. We can jam, man. And up until that point, it was so tense. So it was really cathartic just to be able to join in. And it sounded good. And the audience was like, oh, yeah. So I stepped back after that song. And people in the audience were coming up and asking, hey, are you going to play more fiddle? And I did. I ended up doing about 4 or 5 songs. And it was fun. And if you've ever played fiddle or mandolin, it's tough to play in the key of F. That's tough. Now, I can play on autopilot in G, D, and C in those keys. So it doesn't matter what song's going on. I can join in. Zero effort. I can autopilot that. They had done some songs in F. They had a slower song, and they said, here's a slower song, do it. And that, luckily, I've been pushing myself over the past 2 years to really keep improving myself as a fiddle player. And so they did the song in F, and luckily it wasn't an issue. I could play along and back them, and playing in F wasn't an issue. And I was a little bit worried because I had never just jumped on stage with a band and jammed along with the song in F before. I've done that with other keys, but F is quite difficult. And if you play fiddle or violin, you'll know it takes significantly more effort than just playing in G. And it was so much fun. We were hanging out, just chatting with people in the audience, and that was in Plymouth, California. And that was so much fun. But as I was driving home that night, that was a great experience. I was thinking about that and chatting with people, and just, really good talks, and had a great time with the band. For some reason, the only thing I could think of while driving home was, and I'd even stopped at Old Corner Saloon in Clements and had just a refreshing beverage there, and I didn't really talk to anyone there. The vibe seemed a little closed off that night, but I was driving home. The only thing I could think of was, damn, Jen has nasty hands.